What's up, writers, readers, humans? This is Austin again. Today we're going to be talking about one of the best pieces of fiction I've ever read for sure, and it's from Tin House, which is near and dear to me because it's a Portland, Oregon small print publishing company that also is in Brooklyn, New York. A lot of great stuff they've pushed out over the years. They have a lot of great people that are involved with Tin House. The former poetry editor, I think he actually might still be the poetry editor. I gotta check into that. Is my biggest inspiration of all time, Matthew Dickman. They've done such great work. And the book we're gonna look at is The Seas by Samantha Hunt. And you can see here, introduction by Maggie Nelson. So, I mean, the book stands on its own, but if Maggie Nelson's writing your fucking intro, then you know that you're doing something right. So, The Seas. No spoilers, just some things we can discuss that are in the synopsis, because I definitely think you're going to want to read this book, especially if you're a writer. This book is one of those books that, again, I pick it up when I feel like I need something to go in, so I can push something out, kind of like the ocean. This book, it is fiction. Samantha Hunt, she's an incredible writer. I first discovered her through another Tin House book, an anthology called Fantastic Women. 18 different women who each wrote a short story that's compiled into this book by Tin House that is about dark. They're basically like literary fiction, like fantastical fairy tales that are just insane. Samantha Hunt, she's been compared to like Aimee Bender. For those who know Aimee Bender out of Los Angeles, she is a master at telling these like stories that are kind of weird, really intriguing. They really expose the heart of being human, and they're in the setting of something fantastical, which is so exciting for me. You know, it's a piece of the literary world that I don't think gets enough love, especially because a lot of us grow up being so into fantasy, right? I myself, a huge Harry Potter nerd, right? Pendragon series. I tried Lord of the Rings, Charlie Bone. You know, there's this idea of pushing genre fiction to the side, and then you got literary fiction, which I think is fucking bullshit. Samantha Hunt is an amazing example of someone who will just fucking write what she wants to write, and it's amazing. One of her basically after that book, Fantastic Women, her story from Tin House, where basically this man and woman become deer, which also is a movie I saw on Netflix. I saw it in the middle of the night. It's a European film. I'm gonna put in the notes. I gotta see if there's a connection there. But this book, which I'll review later, The Dark, is a series of her short stories that people just gotta read as well. So Kelly Link is an amazing writer herself. She writes on here, Samantha Hunt's every sentence electrifies. Which is fucking true. You're gonna get shocked when you read her. So The Seas, gorgeous cover. I got the hardback recently. Although I think Tin House just did a soft cover, like anniversary edition, which is pretty sweet. But I mean, just look at the fucking design, right? I'm a big believer in like the importance of design in general. Book covers, it's so important. Love the design they've done on this with Tin House. The white, beautiful script, the oceanic color palette. We got this mermaid question mark right on the cover. So basically, The Seas is written in first person by this character who lives in this small town on what reminds me of the Oregon coast. It's definitely, for those who are from California or have been to California beaches, they know that, or should know that, there's a big difference between a coast and a beach, right? A coast is not something that you want to hang out and drink Coronas on. It's 46 degrees, it's super windy, it smells like kelp. Bikinis don't exist, right? This book's definitely about one of those towns. I grew up going to the Oregon coast. A lot of my inspiration as a kid, as a teenager, when I started to write more creatively in college, I would love to write when I was in that part of the country. So basically, this book, first person, like I said, this character, she thinks she's a mermaid. Her dad told her she's a mermaid. And the thing that this book, for me, does so beautifully is it weaves a couple different plot lines and character traits and thematic elements together under this one umbrella of like codependency. So another reason this book really strikes me is I grew up in an alcoholic home. I grew up seeing alcoholism in my family. I've had to kind of define my relationship with alcohol as I've gotten older and older, and had some struggles myself. So it's something I'm really familiar with. So let's kind of talk about how she creates setting. So Samantha Hunt, the town and the ocean are so important in this book. I mean, it's kind of like the island if you ever watch Lost, right? It's its own character for sure, and she anthropomorphizes it, you know, from the get-go. The intro of this book, listen to how she rates this ocean or describes it. The intro is called "The Map, a Prologue." Listen to this. The town is built on a steep and rocky coast, so that the weathered houses are stacked like shingles or like the rows of razor wire in a prison, one on top of the other up the hill. Small paths and narrow roads wind their ways between the houses so that there's no privacy in this town. If you were to stumble home drunk one night, by morning, the entire town would know. Not that they would care. People here are accustomed to drunks. We have the highest rate of alcoholism in the country. And this fact is repeated so often, I thought we should put it on the Chamber of Commerce sign at the town line that welcomes tourists. More alcoholics per capita. Enjoy your visit. So the end of the prologue, and this isn't really a spoiler because like it's right from the get-go, right? And even Maggie Nelson mentions this part in the intro, right? So you can just pick this up at the store and see basically this main character. She's driving with this this war veteran who's come back from the war, who's an alcoholic, named Jude, and she's in love with him, but like Jude rarely reciprocates, and you kind of question, and even people tell her like, dude, why are you waiting around for this guy? So basically her and Jude are driving, and it's a hint at what happens later in the story where they're trying to escape the town and the ocean, right? And listen to this, how they characterize it. I look again in the rearview mirror, and quite suddenly there is a beautiful blue, as though the storm finally broke. It is truly a gorgeous color. This blue is chaotic and changing. I recognize it immediately. Jude, I say, look. And I point into the rearview mirror. It's the ocean sneaking up behind us. I watch as the blue rises up like a tidal wave so quickly that I'm certain it will catch up with us soon. It doesn't want us to leave. I check the mirror. I don't think we can outrun the ocean, but I'll try for your sake. I accelerate. I look again in the rear view. The color blue fills the entire mirror, and watching it, I think that is how a small northern town in America works. It enlists one beautiful thing, like the ocean, or the mountains, or the snow, to keep people stuck and stagnant and staring out to sea forever. She's characterizing this town and these towns throughout the United States, small town America. It's like the town itself is the codependent character, and the one beautiful thing, despite all this other madness, the one beautiful thing, like the ocean, the mountains, or the snow, keeps them there staring forever, right? And this is the character saying it, so she could be projecting, right? But also we also know from other characters about this town that that's kind of what happens, and we know true to life, right? A lot of towns. I grew up in a really small town called Estacada, Oregon. It's grown to like almost 3,000 people now, but when I was growing up there, it was like just north of 2,000, and a lot of people don't leave, and some want to do it, and some don't. But it's really interesting to think about why people stay. When I was at the University of Oregon in a creative writing workshop, we had a speaker, Susan Straight. Her talk it's a craft-based talk, but what her theme was really awesome. I was a freshman, I was 18, real starstruck. She talked about how there's two types of people to her. There's people who stay, and there's people who go. And she was someone who stayed. She grew up in Riverside, California, out in the valley, in the desert, basically, right? Unglorified part of Southern California. And she went and did her like master's of fine arts in creative writing in like a a prestigious college in the Northeast, one of those schools. I think it might be like Williams or Amherst or something like that, UMass Amherst, I can't remember exactly. And she found herself writing about tumbleweeds and, dirt mountains and 110-degree Augusts. She missed Riverside, and she now today lives, if you look out her back window, she can see the hospital she was born in. So she says she's someone who stayed. She left, kind of like Odysseus, right? Have to leave to come back. But she's back where she stayed. And I think this book really makes me think about that idea, which is really fascinating. Another part higher up in the page I missed was where she characterizes the town more. Jude is being very quiet, but that is not unusual. Jude has been quiet over the past year and a half, ever since he returned home from the war. He is closing his eyes so as not to see the land we know disappearing. From here, if there was no rain, we would see how our poor town sits in a pit of sadness, like a black hole or a wallowing cavity or an old woman. We would see how the town stares out at the ocean it loves, never considering its other options. The town must be drunk to love the ocean, because the ocean thinks the town is small and weak. The ocean always beats the town throughout the hardest winter months, pulling down houses and ripping up boats. Yeah, so good. Just to recap, we have this character whose father, he leaves out to sea and he hasn't returned, and her mom's waiting and she's waiting, right? And the character basically is like, look, Mom, Dad is dead. Like, he's not coming back. And her mom, still waits, right? So you got the mom waiting for this father. And then you got the town that's waiting for something better than this like gnarly winter, like, Oregon coast or Pacific Northwest or basically Atlantic coast, coastal towns that aren't California and Florida. I mean, Florida has its storms and stuff, but, these cold coastal towns, it's a lot of just old shacks and buildings getting destroyed over the years by wind and rain and rust, and the salt air, like, burns through the metal of your car, hood, and the town is just still there, right? Taking all this, knowing it, but looking at the one beautiful thing, the ocean. So you got the mom, you got the town, and you have this character, right, who's speaking. And she's been waiting on Jude, she's been waiting on her father. This is a great example of plot intersecting with theme. Samantha Hunt isn't just ornamentally dressing, this story with these, like, little observations, so later you can remember on page 138, be like, oh yeah, like, the way the narrator talked about the town, she must be codependent then, right? But it intersects with the plot. The last thing I'd say writers can learn, at least for this video, that can learn from this book is, with all these different levels in which a consistent theme is being fleshed out, highlights something that's so true to being human, which is we often struggle to take our own advice, right? So, and this is almost like, if anyone watches like Gilmore Girls, right? Like, repeating the mistakes that our parents and grandparents did, right? Almost being inevitable. So, this last section I'll read, and we'll end there. So, why would you want to be anything like that, she asks. You're 19. Why would you want to hitch yourself to some sinking ship like Jude? I mean, Jude's nice, but you're young. You should travel. You should move to New York City. See the world. Meet people. She turns away to look out towards the ocean. I don't really like people, I think. That's why. Just then, her expression grows wide and she raises her binoculars to her eyes. What's that? She stands up, excited and pointing to a spot where the waves break. There is something floating there, some sort of mass, trash or a rain slicker or maybe just a seal. I suppose it could look like a man, but not if you looked at it for too long. It's a log, Mom, or a trash bag. Are you sure? I nod yes. Yeah, Mom. Because for a second, she says, and breaks the thought off there. For a second you thought it was Dad? She looks at me with a twisted mouth. Her mouth is twisted from having told me to do one thing, while she always does the exact opposite.